phone. If you are, we'll get this going.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chris. What about you, Nick? I think he's there. Nick, can you hear me?
*6 to unmute your phone.
Maybe he's not on the phone.
Can we give him a minute?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't probably tell if he's on
Well,
here.
I can't see it because the caller can't tell, but he's not in on the website.
Right, okay.
Okay. We'll wait just a little bit so we make sure and give everybody a chance.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Shannon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in person since we were in DC.
Yeah. It's about
For him. Yeah.
We don't recognize him.
Yeah, I don't know who that guy is.
Homeless guy standing on the street. I thought there was.
Got the COVID beard deal going on.
I had a COVID beard for a while. It didn't look good.
Nick, you there yet? Anybody got Nick's number to text him to see if he's see if
We
he's
got him on
around?
the contact list, yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, Nick is here. Great. Welcome everybody to this regularly scheduled board meeting of the Tahoe PD. If you would all please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, comments from the audience. And I'm not seeing a big audience out there. I don't think there's one on the line. If there is, somebody type up now. Corrections to the agenda or consent calendar. Dwayne, did you have something for this?
Yeah, I wanted to pull 4C.
Okay, we'll pull 4C and we'll bring that up after that. So let's have a motion on the consent calendar.
Move the approval of the consent calendar minus item 4C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Director Sepulveda,
Yes.
President Vogelsang,
Yes.
Director Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Exline,
Yes.
Director Wallace.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next up is consent items brought forward for separate discussion. This is about the Diamond Valley Ranch hay barn, and Dwayne was not on the board when we kind of discussed our whole thoughts on this, and I thought it would be a good idea if we kind of went over this again just for all of our
Are you
sakes.
taking the golf cart?
Was that related to this conversation?
Somebody's called.
Anyway, Dwayne, so go ahead to whatever you wanted to.
Yeah, when I left, and was booted out of the district by the voters, I thought we were going to have somebody do the work, sub out the work for us. And evidently, for one reason or another, that went sour. The gentleman that didn't perform properly. But I didn't, and I just heard rumblings of that before I left, so I didn't know that the district took a different direction. And I just wanted to, because it's my fiduciary responsibility, I wanted to go through the business plan and see if it makes sense, because sometimes you can head down the road and find out that it might not be the best business decision, or it might be. So I instead of surprising everybody, I let John know and Jim Hilton, and just asked them if they could give me some information, and they did. And so I narrowed down some of my questions. My first question was, what was the idea for a rate of return when we first started this? When the district first started, were we looking at a 6-year payback, or
with respect to the haying operation as a whole, or the hay, the purchase of the equipment, because going back to the haying operation, the reason we were doing it, of course, was to utilize our own water on our own property with the expectation that we were going to potentially lose ranchers down the road. So this reserve, and that goes back to the philosophy that you were involved with initially of purchasing the ranch, so that we have some opportunity to do something with our wastewater in the future that we control our own destiny with respect to that. And so that led to the haying operation, and growing alfalfa as the kind of crop that would allow, that really was permittable for us. There are other crops, other agencies use wastewater to grow other crops that are perhaps more profitable, but alfalfa is the one that we could get past from a regulatory standpoint with our local, with Lahontan as the regional board governing that. And so that leads us to today. As you said, we went through a process with initially for a year to try out a contract haying operation. We did that work. We only got one bid, and that bidder, it was really they're starting their business, but they proved to be both challenging to deal with, to manage those individuals, and then they did a very unacceptable job. And they honestly, we can show you the old pictures where they tore up our fields, etc. And that's not just, SDPD employees making those comments, but that's actually outside third parties who do contract haying for other entities, saying they couldn't believe how poorly that operation had run, the damage they did to our product and our crops going forward. And so initially we got into this business. It was not just about return on investment. It was, we're going to do something with our wastewater. This gives us an opportunity to explore this without going whole hog and developing the entire ranch. We did this three particular fields so that we could see what was going to happen and how this ranching operation would work. We could explore this, and that's where we're sitting at today. So it wasn't, again, initially about return on investment. As we've gone forward, we've certainly tried to maximize our return on investment at every opportunity throughout the process. And with this particular piece, there really were no other haying operations available. We could not get a contractor to come in and hay for us. Jim Hilton has good relationships in Alpine County. The other contract haying operation in that area, he spoke to them and they said, listen, we weren't doing enough acreage for him to come in and do that work for us, and you've probably heard this from Jim already. And as the phrase that he uses is he'd be stepping over $1 to pick up a dime. And so it wasn't going to be cost beneficial for them to do that work for us. So that left us kind of holding the bag. What are we going to do about this? So we went through the process to try and figure out what we were going to do, and that has led us to purchasing the equipment to do haying operations for ourselves. And with that comes the need to, one, protect that equipment that we just purchased. We don't have anywhere out of the weather to store that equipment from year to year. And so having cover to do that is part of what this hay barn does. But the other piece is being able to protect the quality of that product while we're waiting to sell it. And by having a hay barn, we're able to do that. What we've seen is the price dramatically falls when you let rain hit this stuff, right? The water gets on, you understand, you come from the background to know what's going on there. It dramatically impacts that, so we have to do something to cover this hay. And this, as a long-term operation for the next 20 years, this appears to be the most cost-effective way to protect that year over year, rather than doing something like, we could do a very small barn to protect the equipment and then do tarps every year. But again, that actually gets expensive over time, over the life of that haying operation, given particularly that we cut 3 times a year. And my recollection, and this is off the top of my head because I haven't looked this up before the meeting, is that we get something around $50,000 a cutting when we have really high quality hay going into the operation. And of course it falls off from there. And so we want to protect that investment and be able to sell it at the right time. If we're able to hold this under cover for a period of time, depending on what the market is doing, we can hit the market with this hay when it's actually valuable. instead of flooding the market with, when other people are flooding the market and they don't need that hay. So it gives us a lot of opportunities. And I don't know if Jim Hilton is on the line. If there's anything I said, Jim, that is incorrect, please correct me. And I don't have the numbers on the top of my head on the return on investment with that value for the hay. And I'd have to defer to Jim unless John had a chance to look that up.
Yeah, I am on the line, and John and Paul definitely have the numbers from my old agenda.
When I saw those, I had a question on that because it showed maybe $50,000 to $70,000 a year returns.
70 to 100, Dwayne. $70,000 to $100,000 a year for the sale of the hay.
What I got, I think it was.
That's for 3 or 4 cuttings. On our financial analysis, based on 3 to 4 cuttings, getting 70 to 100,000 per year in total per season, it was going to be a 6 to 8 year payback.
Okay, so
the cutting we just completed
50K per cutting, but at least 100,000 a year
per season. Yeah. Well, 70 to 100 per season is what our analysis was based on.
Because
and that's a low estimate.
This cutting we just completed has a market value of $40,000 to $50,000 on this first cut.
I knew when we hired you, Jim Hilton, that being the, I say this as a compliment, a dynamic person, that things would grow down there just because you would find ways to maximize what we do. And I've been very proud about the alfalfa. I'm actually bragged about it a lot because we do so much that so many other districts don't do. But because of this, the COVID thing, and what I imagine will be a drop in revenues, at least for a short time, from people dragging on their bills or possibly having them go to property taxes, I was concerned about putting money there where we might want to put it elsewhere. So I had another question. How many employees do we have in Alpine County now?
4.
We have 3, 4, yeah, including myself.
So we're counting an employee doing that work, right?
Yeah.
How much does the employee cost? I mean, we're looking at a diminished.
But there was no additional staff time or employees that were required to complete this hay operation.
What were they doing before?
We added staff. We added a staff member when we started the haying operation, but not the hay harvesting operation. So when we went,
Yeah, we added a staff member when we fired up the irrigation, the pivots themselves, and that's where the manpower is. And we've been able to dovetail this haying operation into our duties. It hasn't been easy, but it's gonna work out, and hence the cost benefit aspect of it all.
And we need that particular piece of ground, right? We couldn't sell that to a.
Alpine County.
Yeah, we bought a little bit more land than we needed. A lot of it was rocks.
The haying itself is not on that piece of property. The jungle property, is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the haying.
Across from the ranch house, as you're standing at the ranch house door off to the left, that property, right, that is not being utilized at this point.
There's about 300 plus acres in that area you're talking about that. Actually, we've been talking about with Jim and others about maybe doing something, developing that in some way, but it would be outside of any of a
right.
irrigation
It seemed like we bought
operation.
a little bit more land than we needed. I wasn't sure where the hay land was. So you say you do have the rate of return, because when I was selling businesses, and excuse me for this, because most of them were small businesses, some were pretty large. If you had to work a business, you should be able to get a 25% return. 4 years, you should be able to pay it off because you're working it too. You're getting your salary out of it. And so if you're talking about 10 or 12 years, that starts looking like not such a good business decision, considering that where we might be in terms of needing money for either a rebate or for just covering our losses on our sewer delinquencies. So I wanted to make sure that we thought this through, because we're half in this thing now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean a bad decision follows another, if that is indeed a bad decision. So I wanted to see where the other board members' thinking was on it. I'm just trying to do my job.
But part of it, Dwayne, is
Let me, if I could add something
Go
to
ahead,
put
Jim.
it in perspective for you, Dwayne, is that a majority of the return on investment, a majority of the equipment, in the hay barn will be paid for during what would have been the life of the haying contractor's term. So it's almost a blessing that things worked out the way they did, because not only will the district be able to receive revenue from the hay, we didn't receive a penny of revenue last year, but it will pay for the equipment and the storage facility what would have been during the term of the contract hayer, and then from that point forward, it's just pure profit for the district.
Dwayne, and Shannon mentioned this, I think one of the things I was thinking of on this, we were kind of boxed into a corner. We don't have the option of just saying, well, we'll get somebody else. And that's part of the reason it's like, I was willing to say, okay, 7-year payback doesn't look great on the books, but it looks pretty good when you don't have anybody else to farm your hay.
It's a rocky field, but we're the only farmer.
Right.
And there's got-
My question, Jim, what's the dimensions of this building? How big is this?
It's 60 by 150 feet. It will basically, there's one enclosed bay that we will keep the baler. It's a $144,000 piece of equipment, and it needs to stay dry, and the tractor. The other pieces of equipment we can find in cover under an open bay if there doesn't happen to be storage there, but it was sized to basically accommodate 1 full year's worth of hay cuttings.
This $300,000 estimate amount, did you already get prices from a metal building fabricator?
Yes. And then again, Steve Caswell, if he's on the line, can speak to the other costs, but the costs for the steel building structure themselves are around $100,000.
Mm-hmm. And then you got the foundation work.
Correct.
Slab.
Yeah, so this is Steve. The quote that we got.
Sorry, go ahead,
The
Steve.
quote that we got for the metal building was $123,000, and that was for the building kit to be delivered to the site. It doesn't include erection of the building or any of the foundation work. So that's and then we have some electrical work where we have to run electrical from one of the pivot rigs to the building, and then lights and a heater and things like that. So that's kind of how we get to the $300,000.
Okay.
I guess what would be our option at this point? I mean, to Randy's earlier statement, we were to some degree boxed into this corner, and given the variables as they exist, and I do appreciate Dwayne's desire to keep costs down, but even if we wanted to sell these, who's going to buy them right now anyway? So I think we're almost further boxed in a corner than we were initially.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the barn doesn't have to be built. I mean, we could get around that. I think it's a bad idea to not build it at this point. We could tarp, like today we have all those bales of hay sitting out there.
We got the pictures you sent.
Yeah. So we need to protect that from the weather. It costs money and time to tarp that.
And you're thinking from vandalism and things like that.
Well, that's
I think mostly weather.
You use the cost of the tarp and the labor to do that every 3 times a year.
3-4 times a year.
Yeah, it's about
Plus your equipment.
each cutting will cost about $1,000.
That's not too bad.
And I would also point out that I suspect that this is going to be fairly low price, given the economic climate in the building community that's going on. I think we're going to get, if we bid this project, my expectation is we're going to get good value for that purchase.
So let me just add one more thing to tie up, like, should we do this now or wait a little bit? I think if you look at doing this hay operation internally, including the implements that we've already purchased, and adding this barn as part of this financial analysis, that it gives us a 6 to 8 year payback. And we know that equipment has a life of at least 20 years. I think we all know we're going to be there at least 10, but probably 20 plus years, with recycled water. So it makes sense from a cost standpoint. From a cash flow standpoint, do we want to spend this 300,000 now or not? I think we have the funds now to do this, and I think that now is the time to do it to make this whole financial picture pencil out better.
And Paul, you've looked at this before and now. What do you think?
I don't see any difference between before and now. Yeah, that was, like everybody has said so far today, you know, we looked at what the approximate payback would be in the life of the equipment. And when we determined that that was at least 20 years, we figured that we were getting our value out of it.
So we're looking 20 years out. All right.
Yeah, if we're looking at a payback of 10 to 20 years or 15 to 20 years, I think it's going to be it would have been a tougher decision. Although we didn't have a great fallback, as Randy mentioned.
Chris, did you see all this the same way? You guys had the advantage of seeing it as it happened, and I was just a little surprised. Needed to reassure myself.
Dwayne was surprised that we were in the ranching business. The idea, you know, and I had the same initial thoughts. It's like, wait a minute, we're only good at one thing, and that's sewer and water. Well, you know, this, you know, branching out a government entity doing a private business's a job is usually a disaster, but in this case, it actually kind of made sense.
And it primes us now to sell bottled water.
You might be able to do it.
Here goes Jim's golf course idea. But
or a duck hunting.
Dude ranch.
Fishing, something. All right. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I move that we authorize staff to advertise for construction bids for the Diamond Valley Ranch hay barn.
I'll second that.
And we have a motion and a second. Director Cephalou?
Yes.
President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
No, I'm right.
Yes.
You know, she said no.
I said I started to no. That motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Thanks for letting me catch up.
And I don't mind a little repetition, Dwayne. If you see something on the consent item that you weren't a part of its history, feel free to pull forward.
Yeah, I mean, I might prove valuable in the long run because I remember a lot of things I killed Indian Creek agreements and things. I remember asking, I was the last one to sign it. I said, do we really have to do this? I guess we didn't. So you guys were busy while I was gone.
Okay, so this brings us to item 6A, which is the computer equipment for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Yes, I'm here. I'll get up.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to ask the board to authorize the purchase of our budget replacement computers and servers for this fiscal year for the estimated amount of $117,200. We have a 5-year replacement cycle for our PCs and laptops, and a 4-year replacement cycle for our servers. We did increase our replacement cycle back in 2007, 2008 from a 4-year on our PCs and laptops to a 5-year. So you know, we've done what we actually can. We've got a max warranty period we can get on our PCs and laptops is a 5-year warranty, and at that point we start seeing issues with computers, and it basically starts costing so much staff time over versus replacing it, which makes the systems run much more smooth. Our servers are on a 4-year cycle, which is also the max warranty time we can get on the servers. And most of the servers, well, all of our servers are critical infrastructure systems that we need to keep up and running without issues. So this year we're replacing, let's see, we've got 16 PCs, 4 laptops, and we're adding some tablets in for the crews. So we've started moving to a lot of forums and online maps for the crews to use out in the field. And then we also have 4 servers to replace, which is part of what bumped the cost up this year. So we have 2 SCADA servers to replace, as well as one of our hosts and one of our controllers for our authentication systems, or domain controllers. So given that, Do you guys have any questions for me on this item?
Did you have to buy extra laptops for this COVID stuff we're going through?
We were lucky we didn't have to. In the past, we had like 4 or 5 laptops in the department, but as we replaced them, we cut the old ones. And so we've been able to.
Oh, so you use those, right?
Right. So now I think we have 9 or 10 typically in the IT department. And so we were able to give those out to people without purchasing new systems.
So you'll probably do the same thing. You'll retain the ones you have now when you get the new ones.
What we'll probably do
Keep
is
the better units.
right. Yeah. We'll get rid of the older units that are from 2012 to 2013. Keep the newer ones that we're replacing SaaS PCs with, and keep them in IT. We keep about the same number available.
Have we ever had anybody attempt to hack us other than people that we hired to try? We did
So
try
far,
to,
we've been
I think
lucky.
we did that.
So far, we've been lucky with that. We haven't been hit.
That's good.
Yeah. We're doing the cybersecurity training for our staff to make sure that they don't go off and click links and compromise their security. We've recently had a board item for our cool system, which is security as a service. And so we've got a couple of their monitoring tools hooked up to our networks and are looking for anything unusual, and they will alert us if they see that and help us mitigate it if they see anything. So we're doing a bunch of, subtle items to improve our security. Hopefully that will never happen.
Was your question, Dwayne, though, did you ask, has anybody ever attempted to?
Because I don't know if you would know attempts.
Well, a successful attempt we would know.
Yeah, exactly.
As for if somebody's attempted it and we've denied it, or they haven't been able to get in, we don't really know.
I see.
But that's part of what the Article Security Service is helping us do, is they can identify unusual traffic in our networks or unusual attempts to get into our networks and alert us and say, is this something you expect, or is this something that we need to be aware of, and then they can help us mitigate that.
Yeah, my only reason for asking is whole countries like Australia right now, or was under an attack a week or so ago. It was a terrible attack. I was just wondering if, when they do that, if we're ever exposed the same way.
And we can be.
That shows my ignorance.
And it's something that we hope doesn't happen, but it's a likely occurrence. It could happen. And so we just try to increase our security footprint to stay ahead of those attempts. So that's
Okay, thank you. If I have any other questions about our IT, I'll ask John. He'll probably tell me to call you.
okay.
Okay.
Only for our answer.
Chris or Nick, do you have anything on this?
I just have one quick question, and I went through the list, but I was wondering is this half of the existing computers, or is this the entire inventory of them? Do they alternate years for different departments?
Yeah, so since on the PCs and laptops, we're on a 5-year cycle, so we do roughly a fifth of our systems every year. And then on our servers, we're on a 4-year cycle, so like we've got 4 virtual hosts, we'll do 1 a year, so we're not bunching them all at one time. So we do distribute it out over the lifespan of the warranty that we buy on the systems.
Okay, thank you.
Hence, you said the word annual when you came up the first time, so that makes sense. Okay. I'll go ahead, Brian. Why don't you tell us what you want?
I'd like to request the board to authorize the purchase of budgeted computers and servers for the estimated amount of $117,200, includes tax.
So moved.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Director Cepolo,
Yes.
President Vogelsang,
Yes.
Director Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Exline,
Yes.
Director Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Secondary clarifier, number 3, rehabilitation project.
Steve, you don't mind?
Yes, I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All of you.
Noise background.
Yeah, I heard a couple echoes. I
Yeah.
hope that's not on my end.
It's all yours, Stephen.
Okay. I'm here today to ask the board to do three things. One is to find the bid from FAR Construction Incorporated non-responsive and reject their bid. Two, to find the minor irregularities in the bid from TNT Industrial Contractors to be immaterial and waive the immaterial irregularities. And three, award the project to the lowest responsible bidder, TNT Industrial Contractors Incorporated, in the amount of $2,031,822, which includes bid alternates 1, 2, and 4 on the project. So a little background on this project. It was, we have identified the secondary clarifiers as the next round of rehabilitation in the treatment plant. They are beyond the end of their useful life, and so we are moving forward with doing one of them this year, and then the other two will be incorporated with a larger project that'll bid next year that will also include some work on the blower system and the aeration system. But so with this project, it's just for secondary clarifier number 3, which we determined was the one in the worst condition, and so we wanted to move on that as quickly as possible. And so we have we opened bids on June 11th, and we had 4 bids that we did receive through the electronic bidding portal. Unfortunately, the low bid, which was FAR Construction California, did not have any backup documentation that is required to be submitted with the bids. They had an issue with their scanner right before the bid, and apparently were unable to get things scanned and uploaded in time. So unfortunately, we had to find them non-responsive. However, the second low bidder also had some minor irregularities, TNT Industrial Contractors. Their irregularities were associated with the good faith effort and the disadvantaged business enterprises. Those requirements that we often put into contracts that have some sort of funding source, either a grant or a loan. We currently do not have a funding source for this project, but we did, when we were going out for bid, we anticipated that there might be stimulus funding coming due to the impact of COVID, and so we wanted to position ourselves as best as we could to take advantage of that if it were to come to fruition. To date, it hasn't, but we still wanted to make sure that we had those requirements in the contract in case we were able to take advantage of some future funding source. So TNT forgot to submit one form. This form is just a listing of the disadvantaged business enterprises that are going to be used on the project, and there are 2 other forms that also have related material to that information, and they did include those. So so in discussing this with legal representation, I mean, this irregularity is immaterial to their bid price. It didn't give them any advantage through the bid process, and so for that reason, staff feels that this is a waivable irregularity and considers it minor, and then we could award the project to them. So that's kind of the background on the bidding process, and now I want to talk a little bit more about the bid alternates. We put in 4 bid alternates in the project, and part of that was because we just weren't sure what level, well, we knew what level of funding we had, but we weren't sure where the bid prices were going to come in, and we were hopeful that if we got good bid pricing that we would be able to tackle some of these. 2 of the alternates were related to seismic upgrades for the clarifier. So the base project will update the foundation of the clarifier and the mechanism to be seismically sound, but the walls were still we're not going to be upgraded in the base project. So the 2 alternates that for seismic upgrades will apply to the clarifier walls, and they will bring the clarifiers up to current seismic codes. And so we got really good pricing on these two items and compared to what was estimated by our consultant. And so we want to move forward with these as part of this project so that once we finish this project, we have one really solid clarifier that is completely upgraded and gives us a lot of comfort in the reliability of that process. The third bid alternate was to upgrade from a 304 stainless steel mechanism to a 316 stainless steel mechanism. In reviewing that, we wanted to see, well, in including it, we just wanted to see what the cost difference was because, you know, everyone tends to agree that 316 is a more durable product. However, in looking at where this is going to be installed, we didn't feel that there was really a huge benefit to the lifetime of the mechanism by going from 304 to 316. So we've decided not to pursue that bid alternate. The last bid alternate is to install covers on the Clarifier Launders. And basically, this is the area where the effluent leaves the clarifier, and then it goes into a small trough that kind of goes around the perimeter of the clarifier before it exits. And because this is really shallow water and it's exposed to sunlight, there's a lot of algae that grows on the weirs and in that launder. And operations staff spends a considerable amount of time hosing down those weirs to get rid of that algae to make sure it doesn't impact the downstream processes and we have any potential violations of our permits. And so the cost for that came in around $73,000, and we did a return on investment based off of the current amount of time that staff spends on washing down these weirs, and it came out to be between 3 and 4 years. So it seemed to be a good idea for us to move forward with that, and it will free up operations staff to do other work in the treatment plant and not have to wash down these weirs as often. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
I'm good.
I have one for you, Steve. I just have one. I know you said that FAR Construction they had a technical issue, and the next low bidder was TNT. And from what I can see here, it looks like it was about 240 or 50 grand difference in the bids. Is that correct? I'm just kind of rounding off here.
It was around 200,000.
Okay. And even though there was some minor irregularities from TNT, is there no accommodation for FAR to try and submit those, or is that just something outside the scope of the bid process?
So my understanding, and maybe Gary can chime in on this, is with TNTs we can consider it minor because it was because it was just one form and it was immaterial to the bid. With FAR, they didn't submit any of their forms, and while I doubt that they did this, they could have changed things after the bid closed and then given those forms to us, and so it could have been something that was that did affect their bid price. And so that's my understanding of why FAR's omission of their forms is a much greater thing to waive than TNT's is.
Yeah, okay. Did they submit a price without the supporting documentation?
They did.
So the price couldn't change, just the material within the price could change?
Yeah.
Mary got the insight on that for me?
The people that they used, or that they listed, could have changed between the time that they submitted their price and submitted their documentation, and that could be it could be questionable.
Yeah, what Stephen has outlined for you is correct, and when we've talked about this, anything that has to do with financial aspects or subcontractors, any of the costs going in. That's why all that documentation has to be submitted with the bid, so that there can't be any of the bidders that are potentially having heard what the bids are and somehow are maneuvering to change their bid to make it more favorable, more not responsive, but to give them a better advantage going in. So that the rules are pretty strict about the few exceptions that where you can waive these irregularities. And what Steve has outlined is, you know, the naming, identifying who they had contacted and fill these certain positions was not something that could have changed their bid. So it is something you can waive, but the not having submitted any of the bid forms with the bid, I don't think there's any way that could ever be allowed to have them submit that after the fact.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Not to mention the protest that would happen. Okay.
The other thing that sorry, I just have one other thing I wanted to add is just the bid that we for TNT Industrial is still under what we had budgeted and also what the engineer's estimate was by several $100,000. So we still feel like this is a good price for us to move forward on the project.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Hey, this is Nick. I was just gonna add. I think Julie has kept us up to date on this, for several months now and longer in the ops meetings. And to Steve's point, I think this is a good price for what we're looking to accomplish. So I really see this as a win, even with the kind of contractual discussion. I still think this is a real win for the district in saving some money from our budgeted costs.
Well, Stephen, thank you for your very thorough presentation. I don't have any questions more on this. Melanie, he read exactly what he wanted at the start. Can I get that a so moved, or was that too long to go?
I think we can do a so moved.
Okay.
So are you doing that?
I will do that.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Director Cepalo?
Yes.
President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Payment claims.
I will move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,613,528.60.
I'll second that.
First and a second. Director Cepalo?
Yes.
President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
And the claims passes unanimously.
Do we have anybody that has the standing or ad hoc committee report to give? I do not. How about board member report? Anybody got a board member report? Something they want to talk about?
Mine is only.
Just want to wish everyone a safe and happy 4th of July.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know if Nick, I don't know if you ever get out of your house, you should see the traffic in town.
It's funny, it's funny you say that, Randy. I had to drive up to Incline for a meeting the other week, and I was totally unprepared for where all the traffic and road construction was. I was like, I'm out of practice.
Yeah, everybody seems to be driving fast. We did have a fire last night over by some of my family was over at Cuba Beach, and just after they got back, the fire engines.
Yeah, I heard it's by the flag trailhead.
And it was lucky, I guess, the plane at the airport had put it out, so I heard the big plane. It was in sort of the area where they'd had the fire before. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah, on that point there.
Freddie came in today. He said he called it Cascade Bridge. Is where it was.
Cascade Bridge is that little subdivision there. They have their own water. They have a well and their own water company.
Yeah. And then the other is, as executive of the chamber, I'm just getting inundated with calls from people wanting to know, you know, is the town going to stay open? Is it going to stay closed? What's the utility district going to do? I can't pay my bill. What do I do? And I hesitate to tell them not to pay. I'll tell them if they can pay, they should. But I don't know, but the
Well,
numbers will
we should be getting some numbers pretty soon, right?
Next week?
Next week? Yeah.
My guess is that it'll be more than normal. I think that's an understatement, but I have no idea what it'll be. We'll see. That'll help us make a decision, I guess, at our next meeting, once we see. And I heard, but I haven't verified, that the Truckee Sanitation District gave some sort of dispensation back to their customers.
I believe we talked about that several meetings ago.
Yeah, I think it was, they did something. I think it was like half or something, but they're a little smaller out. Okay.
Any other board member reports? How about the El Dorado County Water Agency Purveyor?
So, the financial framework, Shannon sat in on that first meeting. I had a little follow-up with Ken Payne and the gentleman from Zantec. And then I think John and I are going to talk to him again next week. Just about what, and I just basically reiterated what you said.
Okay.
We want money. In so many words.
Yeah.
And I think next week's
Next Wednesday's our regular board meeting.
I think it's canceled.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the 8th.
Good.
Yeah.
As that's the alternative, I was gonna sit in and listen if I.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you wanted to sit in on one next week.
Start catching up again.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll pass it on to you. I don't have the exact date yet. I think I gave them out Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
I was actually their interim exec for 6 months once. It's a crazy world.
Okay, John, you're up with the GM report.
Okay, I've got a couple items, a staffing update on temporary and current full-time vacancies. And we've been discussing this for a while. At our last meeting, we talked about hiring 2 seasonals. These are 2,000-hour positions to help out during the summer. They'll be helping out underground repair, water, and sewer. We have existing full-time vacancies down there. So we need some help this summer until we get the full-time positions refilled. So for the temps, we completed an in-house recruitment effort. We received 14 applications. We interviewed 5 over the phone, and we selected 2, and we plan on having them start next week. So looking forward to that. So overall, I just wanted to summarize the whole temporary request situation. Coming into COVID, we had budgeted for, and I've reviewed actually all 17 requests for temporary employees. With these 2 that I just talked about, we will have fulfilled a total of 8 of the 17, and 2 of the 8 are 100% grant funded. And actually, I think with these 2, this is probably going to be the end of the temp request for, I think, the rest of the year. There's 1 or 2 other ones we're still looking at, but perhaps they will wait. So on to our full-time vacancies. Since our last meeting, we have filled that vacancy in the pumps crew, which was vacated due to a retirement. We had 4 internal candidates interview, and we selected Tony Shinzing, who was, he's been working out in Alpine County, so he's now working in pumps. And Jim says we can wait until sometime this winter to start looking at replacing him and getting somebody else on board for next spring in Alpine County. So we appreciate Jim working with us on that. So with that in-house selection to pumps, we still have those 4 full-time vacancies overall. I'll be meeting with Shannon and Chris Stanley and Jeff Lee next week to talk about our next steps and the priorities for refilling heavy maintenance or underground repair position. And I think based on what we saw with the temporary recruitment, we have some, I think we give it a shot, well, to recruit for a full-time position, and we'll see what kind of response we get and adjust if needed. So next, I want to talk about a little COVID-19 update. Here at the district, no COVID-19 sickness. We are still at risk level 3 because, of course, COVID-19 remains in our community, and we're seeing increasing cases and community spread, especially over the last week. And as you mentioned, the traffic is up, and I think everybody's anticipating a really big weekend coming up. So I did forward Shelley's update from our Barton call from just this past Tuesday. So a lot of great detail in there that you can take a look at. We have expanded the wearing of masks here at work, both in the office and in the field, in compliance with the governor's order that came out a little more than a week ago. I want to talk about customer service. We have set July 13th as a tentative date to reopen the front office for walk-in customer traffic. Now with the, it's changed a little bit in the last 2 weeks with the cases spiking. We have a bit more reservation on that. But Tim will be all set up with all the mitigation measures out front. We'll see how things shake out next week and make a call. And whether we open up on the 13th or maybe we want to push that out a little bit more, we'll report back, of course. Outside of that, I think customer service is working well without the walk-in visits. I've not heard of any complaints out there, so I don't think we're in a big rush. And quarterly bills we're due on Tuesday. Next week we'll take a look at those delinquency rates and report back to the board and talk about any potential future actions. So back at risk level 3, many of our office staff continue to work from home, some or all of the time. Our operations and field staff are working staggered shifts, and some of them are working 12-hour shifts, including weekends, so we can avoid that daily overlap between crews. We have a Team A and Team B, and they work different days of the week. So, they're working weekends. Many of our crews are eager to just get back to those 10-hour shifts and keep their weekends free for their families, so we understand that, but at the same time, we need to balance COVID safety at work with the need to get our essential work done. So we remain concerned about someone coming down sick and spreading that to others, and that can create a lot of havoc here in a hurry. I've asked Shannon and Chris to come here today and speak to this in more detail.
So, appreciate the opportunity. I understand there's understandable concern about district operations and the hours that we're working, the limited hours folks are working. That I totally understand that. However, when we first started this thing, and it has continued to be our core concept, is that we continue to refer to with respect to our decisions based on how we're staffing, and that is ensuring that we are able to provide water and sewer services to our community. We think there is nothing more devastating that could happen other than a fire to this community than not being able to provide water and sewer. Quite honestly, if we were not able to provide either of those services, I'm not sure what we would do. Whether that's bringing outside resources, it could be devastating for us. And so because of that, we take that as our basic concept and then say, okay, well, how do we protect our human resources in being able to deliver these services? And that's where we had come up with this separating shifts kind of concept. And so in plant operations, they're working their normal schedules and normal shifts because it actually makes sense and it's fairly easy for them to separate from one another from shift to shift. We don't have a lot of people walking through that building. We don't have and there's not a lot of overlap when those shift changes happen. They're not meeting face to face. They're separating from one another so they can have conversations and then they go about their business. There's not a lot of interaction there. Again, maintaining that social distancing and that separation. The same thing happens in Alpine County. They're working in normal shifts because they're able to come in and one person comes in, gets their stuff, and then goes out. They've got 1,000 acres out there to go work on, right? They can separate and go and work. With the staff here at the district, with respect to operations, the lower shops and the pump screws, They can't do that. They work out of the same shop. They can't stagger their shifts. We've evaluated whether or not we could do something along those lines. And it really is, our expectation is it's not going to work. We can't go back to regular shifts and have people stagger. There's too much interaction of equipment and the spaces that they work out of, their break room, their shops, their restrooms. All of that is going to lead to this much more close interaction than we want to have happen. And that's what has kept us on these separate shifts going forward. And that leaves us with, that's a challenge. We've not been able to do all of the work that we would normally do in the summer, because I've got a shift of 4 or I've got a team of 4 where normally I would have a team of 8 where they could all work together and get work done. Instead, they're focused on accomplishing the absolute core businesses, core services that we need to accomplish on a regular basis. Nothing concerns me more than COVID coming into the district and wiping out some of our operations staff and their ability to deliver services. And by wiping out, I mean making them sick, not having people die. Nothing is worse than that, but having COVID come into, an infection come into the organization and potentially have a significant number of staff not able to come to work would be, really huge impact in our ability to just deliver service to our ratepayers. They're coming in right now. Our water crew, for example, they're able to go out and fix leaks, and they're able to install new services, and that's kind of about all they're able to accomplish. And that is with pulling staff from the sewer crew in order to supplement their work so that they can fill out full crews to go out and do the needed work in the system, which means that the sewer crew is not doing things like PDing the system. And the other crews are also being shared between the heavy maintenance crew and the pumps crew, etc. There's a bunch of shift that whoever has the hottest potato, if you will, at the moment, is getting staff from other crews in order to fill out their group in order to go and accomplish whatever that task may be. And so it's definitely been a huge struggle, and we've been able to we're keeping things running. The system is performing adequately, but those things that we typically do in the summer that allow us to catch up are not being accomplished. And our concerns with COVID, again, are if that comes in and we start losing staff to that crew, we start losing staff even on this split shift, we're going to be down to a skeleton crew and potentially calling in people on an as-needed basis in order to keep them separated and separate from one another, so that they are able to keep things running and just keep the system running without exposing them further to the infection. And our one crew I'll use it as an example is our electrical crew. We've got 4 electricians, right? So right now they're working shifts of 2 and 2. It doesn't take much before we don't have an electrician on a shift or an electrician able to come in. And they are so critical to every operation that we do. And they are, if they are not here, that is, we can be sunk at really, really fast in our ability to deliver, to pump wastewater, to bring, to run wells. Without electricians, we may be out of business. And so it is really, really concerning. Hence the real fairly extreme measures that we've gone to separate these, so that if one crew does end up getting infected and is out, we at least have this other block of staff that we could then spread out in order to fill the gap and at least keep things running on a skeleton crew sort of basis. If there's a better way to handle this, if you have ideas about it or questions or concerns, love to talk about it. I would love to address any concerns that folks have, and if there's a better way to be doing this work, we'd love to hear it. But this is the best that we've been able to come up with so far. And Chris, I don't know if you had any comments about any of that.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I would like to reiterate, though, that a lot of us are losing sleep because of this spike again in COVID. There's a lot of people out there who don't really realize the pressures that we're under and the consequences of what could happen if we start losing crew members. We were trying to redirect money earlier on the hay barn we were talking about. if we start losing crew members and don't go at a slower pace on opening completely back to regular shift, I can't sit here and guarantee you that we won't end up hiring electricians or contractors, things like that to come in and help keep up with the workload, just to provide basic service if we start losing people. And that can cost us into the thousands, maybe even a million, depending on how long it is. I've had people come in with the flu and wipe out one crew, but it's only for a couple of days because it's the flu. It's had a big effect on us just for those few days. If we have people that are wiped out and it's gone for a few weeks to a month at a time, we're going to really be struggling. We're all going to be sitting here trying to figure out what we're going to do. And I just want to make sure that that comes across. It's really important. We're not like a normal business where if you close down, okay, you close down. This one here, we have to keep working. So I just hope that everybody can consider that lagging on opening completely or getting back to normal on our end of it is probably wiser than just doing like everybody else's town does, and just go back to normal business. The consequences are going to be a lot worse for us. Not that it's not for other people, but water and sewer, you start not being able to deliver that to people, it's going to be devastating.
And I think one point you like emphasize that you raised, Chris, is the thought of using outside contractors to come in and do work for us to supplement us in the event that we do have a lot of people out. I think part of the challenge there is based on when we do hiring, what we see, the challenge of finding somebody who can work on 1960 electrical equipment or 1960 pumping equipment. I don't know that we're going to be able to find those resources. We have those resources in-house because we train them, and we've been able to build them.
That also, when you start working on water, you have to be licensed by the state to do it. So that's not real easy to come by all the time. So,
But please forgive me because I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but in my lifetime, they've never quarantined the healthy. It's always been people at risk, like myself, the elderly. But they never, I think one time maybe in '68, they closed the schools for a couple of weeks. But my question to the powers that be above our pay grade is, okay, is it going to go away? And the answer is, has mumps gone away, measles gone away, pneumonia gone away, MRSA gone away? It will never go away. So is this the new normal where you have to hire twice as many people to get half the job done? Or, and given the new science, where are we? Tahoe itself said on 1.6 infection rate, which is I think one of the lowest in the nation, which I do not understand given our tourism. Maybe it's the fresh air or something. And Barton is empty. And so the whole idea was to keep people home at a rate that would allow the hospitals to handle the infections as they came. And so far, except for New York and a couple of places, that's happening. So if not now, when, if ever, or what do we do? We stay home forever?
Can I take a stab at that, Dwayne?
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually think we're on the way there. I think, first of all, what you're doing, Shannon and Chris, is great. Because you're right, Dwayne, the only way it goes away is to this overused phrase of herd immunity. And this spiking we're seeing is just that taking place. Because at the same time the infection rates are going through the ceiling, the death rates are still declining. So if we can keep our staff healthy enough to where our staff doesn't get it, but enough of the general population gets it to where the virus dies because it doesn't have the herd to spread it, we can survive this thing. So, in my opinion, which is a great thing about this virus, my opinion is as informed as anybody else's because everybody's wrong. Okay? So if you're listening to this, I'm wrong too, because everybody's wrong.
I like to criticize things I don't know.
Right, exactly. So I think this is happening the way that I guess some of the experts said initially. is we're not going to avoid exposure. We're going to try to flatten the curve. Flatten the curve does not mean we're exposed. It means we just keep our infrastructure, our hospital facilities functioning, and we're successful at that. So as related to the district, again, if we can keep, by the methods you're doing, keep our crews safe and out of it, let everybody else get the immunities, and that's how we survive this.
Yeah, we need that herd immunity. It's going to take some time. We just don't want to.
And I think once you see if the death rates continue to drop, which is great news, eventually the spikes are going to level off too because of the herd. Then we will know when we can get back to our normal, based on that.
And for our employees, thank God, they've got a paycheck coming in. For the rest of the community, it's pretty tough. It's pretty dismal.
So guys, I got a thought here. I don't know if Shannon, Chris, John, if you guys require your critical staff to be tested every 2 weeks, or, I mean, it's at the college and it's something that could be done to maintain some level of comfort knowing that you don't have a problem. The second is, have you reached out to any of the local agencies, for instance, Tahoe City, KGID, and or any within a 60 or 80 mile radius, and create some sort of an alliance in the event that something critical like that goes wrong, and you find yourselves needing people to come and help you, or right? They may end up finding themselves in that position, and then I'd be able to go assist them in a spirit of between fellow sewer and water people. And then lastly, you know, that I think it's happened. But that said, we're seeing a new, like, tier society with and all this stuff. And so the potential of putting back down catastrophic, right? And so, I mean, whatever gets going, it will get there. But in the meantime, it could be a little more proactive and at least try and have things in place for you. That happens.
Some of those we do have in place. The requirement for the testing, we're not requiring people, but we are encouraging everyone to go to the college. It's free. They can go on district time whenever to get it done. We are encouraging them. I understand there are a few that are taking advantage of all of that and doing it. Your second part there, as far as the other utilities around the lake, I've been involved with meetings for the last year and a half, where every quarter or so, a lot of managers will get together from all the utilities around the lake, or water and sewer utilities. And we have meetings to discuss things that go on. So we do already have an alliance with some of the other utilities, North Tahoe, things like that, where if we need equipment, they bring it. If they need equipment, we'll take it to them. And that also includes employees too. There might be a little bit of hesitation to have employees going back and forth to different places because you don't know where these other employees have been. But if it came down to it, we would all work together, and we've already talked about that before.
Okay, well that's cool.
We have actually MOUs in place with other agencies to provide services to one another in the event of emergency to kind of that resolves a lot of the administrative background stuff as far as who gets paid and what or what equipment, etc. That Paul has worked on. Paul and Tim have developed with other agencies has been really valuable for us in the past. And Chris and his relationships and his staff, their relationships with other agencies, the folks in Douglas County, for example, when a flag goes up and somebody is in need, we have been the recipient of people coming and helping us out. For example, when we had the Tahoe Key sinkhole, that the pumps we were using were borrowed from Douglas County for the most part, and they were very, they said, yeah, here we got to sit and come use them. But we've also had our staff do welding for folks, etc. As the need has arisen, we've provided services throughout the region to one another.
Have we had any problems with depression? Because I've had friends that I knew. One of them was really sad. He didn't live. some of the kids at the school district and things that suffer from depression because they're isolated. They don't understand this. I don't know what the school district's going to do. They're talking about having half the kids go one day and half the other, but you could have 10 middle school boys if you need 10 10 teachers standing there with them to keep them apart. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So,
I think other countries have had good success with just taking the kids back to school.
yeah, the kids.
They're not carriers and they don't have very low rates.
I also think that we may have a higher group of antibodies than we think, because I think it came through sooner than we thought. I think it was in America a little sooner than what people thought. But we'll find out. The numbers, the math is starting to come back. I told my wife when it first happened, I said, there's no stopping it. Everybody's going to see it. 80 million people in the United States get the flu every year. So I figure 80 million people are going to be exposed to this at least. So I don't know how we're going to handle it. I hope I don't get it.
The bad part right now, Dwayne, is there's, like some of the flu and things like that you mentioned before, they can't cure some of that, but they can kind of control it. With this stuff, there's no controlling it. Not until there's a vaccine of some kind, which they think is going to be around the end of the year. I don't hear different stories. But that's the scary part. There's nothing out there that can control it or give you a sense of safety, I guess you could say. It's just, you're out there, anybody can get it. There's healthy people that are dying, they get it. That, I think, is the scariest part.
Now, because our offices, I didn't hear, so I'm asking, because our offices are so separated, are a lot of our managers coming in on different days? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, some are, in the office, if you can work at home, a lot of folks are taking advantage of that. Just there's less interaction in the offices. There's a lot of separate office spaces here, but there's also a lot of common area spaces too. So that's kind of why we want to maximize that telework, is to minimize those risks in the office, in the common areas, hallways, copiers,
bathrooms. Okay.
So yeah, I think it's going to be with us for a while. Wait this out.
I think
from my point of view, the bottom line is I think everybody here from John on down, all the way to the crews in the field, everything is doing a great job. And I just think if you guys, nothing's perfect, nothing's foolproof. If you just keep doing the common sense things that you guys are already doing, we'll do fine.
Okay. And I do give it to all the crews here at the district. The guys, there's a lot of them that are really stepping up and taking charge and getting things done that we can get done. So I can't say enough good about them. They're just doing great.
And they do appreciate, and I'll make a mention that they appreciate having a stable job right now.
Yes, there's a lot of recognition that we are the exception in town, that we have, that getting a steady paycheck here is really valued and greatly appreciated.
I think the city offices, at least they open their reception area.
Doing that front area, limited hours, and spreading people out. That was the last I've heard.
But I wonder if that'll change now with the spikes coming up.
I don't know.
They just have one person come in at a time to that front counter. Limited
We'll see what happens. For some lucky reason, we live in like the safest county in the state of California. And Eldorado County is consistently at. You don't want to jinx it?
There's just nobody there.
Well, that's true, but that doesn't count. There's only a few.
Wow.
So,
In fact, I think our crew, if they voted down there, could elect all the supervisors. There's 4 of them. That's the majority of the people.
okay, if that's all we got on that, we can move on. Are there any other staff or attorney reports?
I just want to raise one thing. Friday night, we got a call into operations, and there are 11 homes at Heather Lake, which is over by the Bijou Elementary School. They're on a private well, and so they're not our water customers. They're actually on boil order currently. Their well went down essentially. They called Jen Lukens because she was for some reason on their contact list, and she contacted Tom Hain, and Tom Hain Robert came out, they took a look at it, and their well has failed. Their company to be replaced. They contacted us. We authorized them to connect to a fire hydrant in the vicinity and run basically a lay flat fire hose through a culvert and connect into their system. So they're on our system right now. They do have a coil order. There is a backflow preventer on that fire hydrant, so we're not getting water back into our system. And the expectation is they'll probably be on there for about a week or so. But we felt that was prudent to keep those 11 homes, particularly with people quarantined or sequestered at this point, to keep them in the services.
Are they exploring the possibility of not fixing their well and getting on our system?
We have not been contacted by them. To my knowledge, we've not been contacted by anybody. What I understand is they're purchasing new well.
Okay.
The same thing happened in the mid-90s. Their well went down, and we had talked to them about if they were interested in going on our water, and they weren't that type either. And then I went out there the other day, and Lucas was out there replacing the well.
I guess buying a new pump every 30 years is cheaper than buying our water.
Well, it wouldn't be just buying their water. As I understood it from Robert, who dug it up, it appears there's some there's old steel.
Their lines are probably bad.
They have to do all the pipe replacement in there before they can our customers.
I just have one quick item. Our ethics training is up due this year in September. I know, so much fun. So due to COVID and all the restrictions, and maybe it'll be over by then, but Brownstein Hyatt has generously offered to do it for us online this year. They've been coming the last few years to the district and doing it, and they do this for us free of charge, which is really generous of them. They are available to do it Thursday, September 17th from noon to 2, which is kind of what we've done in the past right before the board meeting. Typically, we've done it in here with lunch. We won't be doing that probably this year. We could set up, the computers so the board members who are planning to attend the board meeting can participate here, and the rest can participate in their home office, however they'd like via call-in. So I wanted to find out if that works for the board, if they like that date of September 17th. If not, we'll have to go backwards into August and then into July, which we're into now. So
that's way too far in the future for me to have a conflict. So let's go.
There's a set board meeting, and we just do it from noon to 2, and I'll just schedule it, and that's when Jenna can provide the online training. And it's really nice. It's beneficial to go through Brownstein because they know the district. If there are any questions that are really specific to the district and our board, managers participate in this as well. It's nice for them to be able to answer those questions for us.
May bring writing with me from time to time if there's no school.
That'll be a fun one.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Bring the ninja stick.
Okay.
You do a halftime show.
I think I might regret this question, but Gary, do you have anything for us?
No, I don't need to really say anything. But Jenna is looking forward to meeting with you guys.
Good meeting with you.
Okay, well, you can see the past and future meetings, and as I look, that's the end of the agenda, so let's adjourn this meeting.